Have you ever felt like you're just stuck? Stuck in a loop inside your own head? Where one thought just triggers another, and pretty soon your whole day is just consumed by it? Well, it turns out there's a science to why that happens. And, more importantly, a science to how we can break that cycle. Okay, let's dive right in. This question from a user on Reddit just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? A single bad conversation, a frustrating email, anything, really, can send us spiraling. So this is the exact problem we're going to unpack in this explainer. How do we actually stop that endless rumination and get out of that mental hamster wheel? And it is such a universal feeling. We've all been there. Your brain just grabs onto that one negative thing and absolutely refuses to let it go. But here's the thing. This isn't a personal failing. It's not a weakness. It's a biological process. And to understand how to change it, we first have to understand how our body's own alarm system works. Right? So that feeling of stress or emotional pain, it isn't just in your head. It's a real physical signal traveling through your nervous system, pretty much just like the signal you'd get from a physical injury. So let's take a look at how that pathway actually works. Step 1, something happens. Now, let's use the hammer in this picture just as a metaphor. It could be a physical ouch, sure, but it could also be a stressful email, a negative comment from your boss, you name it, any kind of harmful event. Instantly, your sensory neurons fire off this urgent message straight to the brain. And that message, it does not waste any time. It shoots from the site of the injury up the superhighway of your spinal cord and heads directly into the brainstem. And that's like the command center for all your most basic automatic functions. And this is where the magic, or, the misery happens. The brain gets the signal and it translates it. It creates the physical sensation of pain. But, and this is key, it also creates the emotional response, the anger, the fear, the anxiety. You know that gut punch feeling you get after a bad interaction? Yeah, that's happening right here. Okay, but now look at this. What's so fascinating about this slide is step 4, modulation. This is the absolute game changer. Our brain isn't just a passive receiver, just taking it all in. No, it can act like a volume dial. It can turn that pain signal up, or it can turn it way down. It can even block it completely. So, here's the crucial point. Our own biology has given us a control panel. That modulation process, that's our opportunity to intervene. It's the exact point where we can learn to stop the automatic reaction and instead choose a different response. And the technique for learning how to use that control panel? Well, that's mindfulness. Okay, let's be really clear about something. Mindfulness isn't about chanting or trying to magically empty your mind of all thoughts. It's a form of practical mental training. It's a skill you can develop just like any other. This is the classic definition from John Kabat-Zinn, who really pioneered bringing mindfulness into modern medicine. Let's break down those 3 key parts. On purpose, that means you're doing it intentionally. In the present, not worrying about the past or freaking out about the future. And non-judgmentally, that's the hardest part. It's about just observing without slapping a good or bad label on everything. Think of it this way. Instead of being swept away by the roaring river of your own thoughts, you're learning to sit on the bank and just watch them flow by. You see them, you acknowledge them, but you don't have to jump in the water with them. So what are you actually training when you practice this stuff? Well, you're building some very real mental muscles. First, self-regulation, your ability to manage your emotions instead of letting them manage you. Then there's shifting attention, learning to consciously move your focus away from a negative thought loop and onto something else, like your breath. A huge one is metacognition. This is the superpower of realizing that you have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. We also build reappraisal, which is about changing the story you tell yourself about what happened. And finally, inhibitory control. This is what lets you hit the pause button on that knee-jerk automatic stress reaction, creating a little space to choose how you want to respond. Okay, this all sounds really good in theory, but what does the scientific evidence actually say? Can just paying attention in a different way create real, measurable changes in our well-being? This is the exact question researchers have been tackling for years now. They've moved way beyond anecdotes and are using some really rigorous methods to see what's actually going on in the brain and the body. So let's look at one major piece of evidence. The National Institutes of Health published a big systematic review that analyzed the results from 30 different quantitative studies. And these studies looked at how mindfulness practices affected healthcare professionals, a group that knows a thing or two about stress. So what did they find?
Well, the evidence is really strong that mindfulness is effective for reducing stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms, and it helps increase self compassion, which is huge. But, and I appreciate this honesty, it's also clear about the limitations. The evidence is less conclusive for things like burnout and building resilience, or it might just take longer to see effects. So it's a powerful tool, but it's not a cure all for everything.
So the scientific takeaway is clear. Mindfulness is a proven, evidence-based tool that helps us manage our reaction to difficult thoughts and feelings. It really does empower us to get our hands on that modulation control panel we saw earlier. Okay, the science is solid, but how do you actually bring this into your life without, having to go on a week-long silent retreat somewhere? Let's look at some really simple ways to put these ideas into practice every day. See, the key is to integrate mindfulness into things you're already doing. When you wake up, just for a moment, notice the actual sensation of stretching. When you brush your teeth, focus on the feel of the bristles, the taste of the mint. When you're washing dishes, just feel the warm water on your hands. These are called informal practices, and they're incredibly powerful for training your attention. And if you want to try a more formal practice, it doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. Just 5 minutes. You sit down, get comfortable, and you just focus on the physical sensation of your breath. Now, your mind will wander. That is what minds do. The exercise isn't to have a blank mind. The exercise is the moment you notice it's wandered, and you gently, without judgment, bring it back. That's it. That's the rep. That's the bicep curl for your brain. And that's really the ultimate reframe here. We can't stop the waves of thought from coming, but we can absolutely learn to surf. This whole practice is about creating just a little bit of space between you and your thoughts, so you can decide which ones deserve your energy and which ones you can just let float on by. So I'll just leave you with this one question. If you could change your reaction to stress, even just a little, if you could learn to hit that pause button and shorten those thought loops, what would that change? What would that unlock for you?